taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Volvo XC60. This is the hybrid version of the ride, so you've got some different gauges. It's the plug-in hybrid, but I'll explain those as we get closer into the cluster screen. One thing I'll point out is that the steering wheel inside of the ride is heated. If yours has the heated option inside of the infotainment system, there are 3 unique levels that you can hit, and it's heated all the way around. The steering wheel is also manual telescoping, so just in between your legs there on the steering wheel column, there's a release, and you can go in, out, up and down to find that perfect position for you. Once you find it, click it in order to lock it back into place. Then there are so many different buttons and so many things to know about. So stick on the left-hand side is going to be for your blinkers. You can flash out your high beams as well. But in order to permanently lock your high beams out, you can't do it unless you're out of the auto mode. So you've got different options. So auto mode, if you go up, it's going to bring you into an auto high beam mode. So what that means is that if the vehicle recognizes your high beams are needed, it turns them on automatically. If somebody's oncoming, it's going to turn them off before turning them right back on again. So you've got your auto light mode, but if you want to permanently lock your high beams out, you're going to drop down 1 level to your headlamp mode. You're going to push away in order to turn on your high beams, lock them out, pull towards you in order to turn them off. You can still flash your high beams if you're in the auto mode, you just can't permanently lock them out. You have to drop down a level. You can also toggle on your front or your rear fog lamps. Along the right-hand side, that's going to be for your wipers. So you can drop down a level for a quick wipe. You can go up to different options there. And then if you're in the 1-up option, you could then use the little stick in the middle there, so that little dial, in order to go between different options. You've also got a button on the tip of the right stick, and that's going to be for your rear wiper. You're going to pull towards you in order to get the front windshield wiper fluid going. You're going to push away for that rear wiper fluid. Then you've got a boatload of different buttons. So start off on the left-hand side. These are going to be for your cruise control system. In order to use it, it's straightforward. So as you start to drive, you hit the button in the very middle, and that's going to toggle the system on and set it at your current speed. So let's say if you're traveling 37 kilometers an hour and push it, it's going to set you at 37. You could then push in order to get to the nearest 5 or 0. So if you're at 37, it'll bring you to then 40, 45, 50, etc. If you were to go down, it'd be 35, 30, 25, etc. But if you do a push and hold instead, that's going to bring you up or down 1 kilometer or 1 mile per hour at a time instead. From there, you can also hit the right button here. So once the system's turned on, you hit the right one, and what that's going to do is let you change between ProPilot Assist or regular adaptive cruise control. So with the ProPilot Assist, it's not fully self-driving, but as long as the car recognizes the lane markings, it can keep you perfectly balanced in your lane. So even if you lose focus for a brief second, it can still keep you perfectly balanced in your lane without your hands on the steering wheel. After about 10 to 12 seconds or so, you will get a message inside of the cluster screen saying that steering is required. So not full hands-free driving. And it's strictly going to be adaptive cruise, but you've got the flexibility to toggle that lane keeping system or that lane centering system on or off, or just go to regular adaptive instead. And then you've got these options, which are going to be distance indicators. So it's how close or far are you away from the vehicle that's in front of you. I want you to think of it like a 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi type of a rule for how close you are away. I normally would recommend level 1 on just residential streets, or if you're on like stop and go traffic on the highway. Level 2 or level 3 if you're on just regular traffic instead on the highway, but that's going to come down to a matter of personal preference. But if you actually want to see the adaptive cruise control system used in person, check down in the description of this video. Along the right-hand side, you've also got a series of other buttons. You've got this one, which is a voice command prompt, so you'll be able to do things like change songs, radio stations, navigate using your voice, and so many other things. If you were hooked up to your iPhone or to an Android device, you can do a longer push and hold of that button in order to activate either your Siri or your Google Assistant instead. There's this little button, and that's going to change you between either a map and cluster view or more of just like a relaxed view instead. If you had an active route going though, you'd be able to see everything that's going on inside of the cluster screen, but if you had a route going, you can see there, so it's going to be turn-by-turn directions. So if you wanted the full map and cluster
on the
going,
right charging station aren't
there we go. So if we were driving along the side there, so you can see there as we go to drive what's going on with our route, or if you just wanted something simple with turn-by-turn directions instead, you've got that available. You could then also hit these buttons, and this is going to be for changing between different stations. So if you have presets set up inside of the screen, You can see there. So we'd be able to push this in order to be able to change out stations. You can also adjust your volume this way instead. So you can go up or down. There's also a volume rocker down along the very bottom side too. Then there's a button in the very middle. So if you ever get any messages inside of the cluster screen, you can push there in order to turn them off, or it defaults it into a trip counter. So if we look at the trip counter a bit deeper, you can see there you've got either TM, which is a manual counter, or auto. Button on the tip of the left stick is going to let you reset that counter as well. So you just do a push and hold in order to be able to reset it. So it takes a few seconds to do, but you've got your auto counter, which the vehicle determines, or your manual counter that you determine. So you can think of that like a trip 1 counter. You can see your total odometer along the very bottom there. And then you've got your basic, close there instead. From here, you've got your, let's go along the side. So you've got your current speed, whether or not you've got your digital speed showing up there with your speed sign recognition. You can turn that off inside of the infotainment system. You can see what's currently going on with the fuel economy along the very bottom there, left side. Along the right side here, you've got your current fuel gauge as well. So you can see how full your tank is, whether that's in kilometers or miles. You can adjust it in the infotainment system. And then the one right above that is for your electric range. So how far can you get? And then inside of the infotainment system, you can also adjust out and say a few things. So do you want your battery usage to be auto, so the vehicle determines when the battery's used? You can also hold it so it's not used, or you can charge up instead, which means that where you're going to be using the gas engine, it actually fired up when I did that in order to actively charge the battery up. It's kind of neat the way that it works. And then there are a series of different drive modes. So there's hybrid mode, Polestar mode, off-road, constant all-wheel drive, and some of these modes are actually going to raise the vehicle up as well. It's actually kind of neat the way that it works. You can see what gear you're currently in, so whether that's park, reverse, neutral, or drive. And then you've got your B mode there along the very bottom too. Back into park again. I want you to think of the gauge along the right-hand side here, almost like a traditional tachometer. So the upper part of it, the upper half, because as you go to hit the accelerator pedal, you'll notice that this goes up. So it almost is like a traditional RPM counter. And you'll notice this gauge is going to drop down in order to recapture charge. So it's utilizing regenerative braking. So there are 3 different ways that you can charge up the plug-in hybrid. It's either by forcing the gas engine to come on to charge it through regenerative braking, or by actually plugging in instead. So you've got different options available there. You can see what's going on with your light mode, whether you're in the auto mode, etc. If your lane keeping system's turned on, the current outside temperature, and then whether or not you've got your seatbelt turned on there as well. And then inside of the infotainment system, you've got a bunch of different options. But if we go into our, actually we're going to go to language for a second here, our system I should say, you've got units. And this is where you're going in order to be able to change it out for either metric or imperial. But you'll notice there, it only changes out the very bottom. So it's only going to change out what's going on with your basic distance. You've also got the option of adjusting your speed though. And the speed is where you're going to go if you wanted to change it out to either kilometers or miles per hour instead. So if you're going cross-border, you've got the flexibility to be able to adjust that out. Then through the infotainment system, you can adjust a number of things. But if you want a full walkthrough on the infotainment, you'll find that down in the description of this video. Now, one other thing to point out is that some models also have, look at that, little head-up display. So as of right now, there's an active route going. So you've got your turn-by-turn directions showing up right inside of the head-up display. Once you go to cancel the route, you can see that it just disappears there. But you've got your current vehicle speed along with your active road speed, which you can toggle that off through the infotainment system. But I think it's pretty useful overall. It's subtle, but it's nice. And then through the infotainment, you can also adjust the brightness of the head-up display on top of that. But I know that that is a lot of information. That's everything that you need to know about the steering wheel, as well as the cluster screen inside of the Volvo XC60.